Welcome to the Focused Advisor podcast, where we discuss how you, the independent financial advisor, can grow your business. Hey everybody, welcome to the Focused Advisor podcast, where we interview successful independent advisors, hear their stories, hear how they're building their businesses, things they've learned along the way. Today I speak with an advisor who has been in both the wirehouse world and the independent world, and is practicing what I call the art of focusing on a niche. Alex Goldstein is at Chesapeake Asset Management, where he's a VP of Wealth Management. And that Chesapeake started as an alternative manager, but he and his team are building the advisory business. We have a really fun conversation with a lot of tactical takeaways, talking about having a targeted niche and a well-defined process, and why that is crucial for success. Using LinkedIn and Sales Navigator to focus on that niche, using AI. We talk about AI and the tools he's using, how to stay competitive in the industry because the average attrition rate is like 72%. How do you stay competitive as a young advisor? We talked about focusing on the numbers, staying up to date with technology. We talked about what his niche is, which is corporate executives. We talked about why he thinks having a concentrated stock position is a good way to go after these people because of the value that he can provide. We talk about working with his team and the value they provide as well. We talk about speaking with clients and how important that is, and traveling to them if they need it, being virtual if you need. And then we talk about how developing rapport with clients is important. And we talk about dress code, which is kind of funny. So everybody enjoy this episode with Alex Goldstein. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Focus Advisor podcast. Today, I have Alex Goldstein. He is a Vice President of Wealth Management at Chesapeake Asset Management. Alex, glad you got to New York okay. No flight delays, but thank you for coming on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
Wonderful. So I like to start, just get a general idea of who you are and what do you do, and then I want to learn about your business. So can you just give me some background about who you are, what do you do, and how did you get started in the industry?
So my name's Alex Goldstein. I was born and raised in Boca Raton, Florida. I went to Florida State University for college. I was sort of undecided on what route I wanted to take. I studied finance and political science. Thought I wanted to be a politician. When I first got there, I was interning at the Florida State Capitol, which was right around the corner. I also interned with the football program there. And so I was sort of involved in multiple different facets, didn't know exactly which way I wanted to go. And one summer, I interned going into my junior year at a sports agency down in Dallas. And the guy who ran the sports agency also happened to have his insurance licenses and told me that it was much more lucrative than the sports agent business, and you could still work with athletes at the same time. So I got my insurance licenses prior to going into my senior year of college. And then towards the end of senior year of college, I was deciding what to exactly do. And one of my friend's fathers, Jeff, he suggested that I get a more holistic background, that just doing insurance alone wasn't really going to cut it. And so he had a friend who was looking for an intern at Morgan Stanley. And so I interned for a few months at Morgan Stanley and wound up using that to get an opportunity at UBS. I worked at UBS for a few years, just learning the business as a client service associate on a large private wealth team in New York City. And then after that, I got in, they had sunsetted their advisor program, and so I got into the advisor program at Merrill Lynch in New York City. I did that, and then I came independent after doing that for almost 4 years. And so here I am now at Chesapeake Asset Management. We're an independent SEC-registered RIA here in New York City.
And so you've been on both sides of the industry, right? You've been at the wirehouses and now you're independent. What would you say are like the biggest differences between the two?
The wirehouses, I think, are better for learning the business. You have more opportunity, more training, more senior advisors to work under and to ask questions. And at Chesapeake, we're sort of on our own here. So once you sort of have a business that's established and built out, you can come here, and we have the same capabilities as we do at a Merrill Lynch or a Morgan Stanley or a UBS or any of the wirehouses, but we don't have as much guidance or support in terms of training and stuff like that. And so I suggest, like, if you're starting out in the business, to go into one of these wirehouse programs and then use your knowledge there and your experience sort of to go independent, higher payouts, more autonomy, once you have an established client base.
I read somewhere that the advisor attrition rate in the first 5 years is something like 72%. And I suppose that's even more likely if you aren't on some sort of team or at a place where they have like a training program. So it sounds like that is a huge asset for the industry, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something. I mean, when I was in the program, like 95% of the people don't make it through the program.
Wow.
And so, you have to have a large network or have to constantly be calling, and there's lots of hurdles that get thrown your way. And it's tough for the young guys in the business, certainly.
So what'd you do to kind of get through that, right?
I was struggling. I was struggling for a while. And I went to the manager and was like, look, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So what can I do to be successful? Like, I don't have this crazy wealthy family or this crazy wealthy network. What can I do to be successful? And he suggested that I go with this other young entrepreneur who sort of ran his own business under the age of 30. And all he did was cold call corporate executives. And he said, here's a phone, here's some executives. You can listen to me and then try doing it on your own. And so I sort of listened to him and then tried to emulate what he was doing and try to replicate it on my own.
So you were just getting there at 7 a.m. and calling them really early, and saying, hey, Howard Schultz, can I buy you a coffee?
Essentially, it was more so, and this is what worked. We would call them offering advice on certain equity comp. I'll give you an example. Like, John, I know you're at NVIDIA. You've been there 10 plus years. You have X amount of equity. We can help you diversify that concentrated low-cost basis equity position. Have you heard of an exchange fund? Have you heard of personalized direct indexing and some other strategies, and sharing with them the strategies up front, throwing the value out there right from the get-go, and then trying to get them to accept a meeting where we can go into these strategies in more detail, and then from there get to an info gathering call, and then from there get to a presentation and sort of take them down our process. But it was very targeted to specific companies, specific titles and positions that we know how much equity they get year over year, and could sort of, if they haven't been selling it, how much equity that they're likely to have, and therefore, total net worth.
When you're trying to get these guys on the phone, would you call them up and not give them a chance to say no? Would you just say, hi Ryan, or hi Alex, do you have time to talk about this? Or would you give them time to respond? Or how do you keep them on the phone when you get them on the phone?
Not really. I mean, at first we would go off a script and, I'd have it up on the screen, and then it sort of becomes second nature and it just comes out of your mouth, really. But if they did say no, we'd have tons of rebuttals of just trying to keep them on the phone. The goal was obviously to get a meeting where we're able to share with them these strategies, and we would emphasize the tax savings.
I got it. Interesting. So it's all script based, and once you get through that so many times, it's just exactly what to say next.
You don't even need to look at the script. It just sort of rolls off the tongue and flows really well.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned earlier a couple different, I don't want to call them horror stories, but you mentioned some challenges that you went through over the last few years, just going from team to team and trying to figure out what your how do you be successful as an individual? Can you just give me some stories about the challenges that you had and how you overcame them?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the program, they train you for a few months. You get your licenses, and then they give you a quota, a hurdle sheet where it says month one, and there was 3 categories: net new assets, households, and production, which is gross revenue. And then that's it. You're sort of on your own, and you got to go and bring in the assets and hit that hurdle every single month. So you don't have as much time to learn the business because you're so focused on meeting that hurdle every single month. And so, you're out there, you're on your own, and you got to get business. But if you don't really know or have much experience in the business, how are you supposed to go out and talk to these wealthy people and convince them to give you your money, especially as a young guy? It's very difficult, and so that's why the failure rate is so high. And so I was out there just trying to talk to people, a lot of failure, and luckily I was able to come in contact with this guy who had a great process and a really specific targeted niche, and I was able to learn that and perfect that, use that to schedule him meetings. And then eventually, when I was able to do it on my own because I heard enough calls and I came to Chesapeake, just reenact that. And that's really what it comes down to. But I would say unless you have a really it's a very difficult business. You got to have a really, really targeted niche and a well-defined targeted process. If you're just out there trying to, oh, can I manage your money? Give me your money. It's like, what do you know? There's so much competition. There's so many firms. There's so many more experienced people. And I think a big challenge in this business is just being young and having that hurdle over your head every month, and all you care about is bringing in business, but you don't really have the knowledge base yet to go out and do that. And so you have to align yourself with senior advisors and mentors, and if they don't really have your best interest at heart, it's going to be very difficult, because at the same time as you trying to hunt down business, you got to make sure that they're not trying to steal it from you and take advantage of you. So you got to hunt and also protect yourself. So
yeah. What is that process that you mentioned just now?
The process for...
You said that you guys had a well-honed process, and I think
well-defined process where I see a lot of advisors calling saying, can I manage your money? Can I manage your money? And there's no process that they have. We had a well-oiled machine, called specific executives at specific companies that have specific compensation over, a specific amount. We know everything about their equity comp plans. We tell them we could save them money on taxes. They say, how can you do that? We show them some strategies. We show all our value up front. Therefore, they're willing to bite. We get their information, do a lot of information gathering, and then present to them some actionable ideas and recommendations once we get their information. But we're only targeted specific people, and we know everything about their equity and their company stock plans and all that. And so we're focused on one specific type of individual. We're not hunting retirees and 30-year-olds, entrepreneurs and athletes and doctors. And so it's a very specific approach that we have. And it works with people who have low cost basis, lots of concentrated stock, and they're willing to listen to these strategies, and we can sort of then parlay that into our broader offering.
Mm-hmm. You talked about niche earlier. Can you just tell me, how would an advisor that might not even have a niche, right? How can they think through how to develop that niche and then go after it?
I would say whatever you're passionate about, really. For me, I sort of got lucky in the sense where I got stuck on a team with somebody who had such a great process and was willing to teach it to me and show me the ropes, and I saw it work, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to use this process as well. But I would say, if you're an ex-doctor, I know some people that have sort of changed career paths, or they worked in medical sales, or they have some sort of medical network, maybe prospecting doctors, or if you came from the athlete business or sports agent business, or you were an ex-athlete yourself, maybe the athletes, and you kind of stick with that. And once you gather an athlete base, then it's easy. Oh, I have this client and this client, this client. It's easier to get more athletes. It's the same with executives, because we have a large referral network of other executives. When we call executives, we say we work with other executives at your company, so they're more likely to listen. And I think once you have that base of clients and you sort of know how they operate, it's rinse and repeat. It's less learning. Sort of new ways and new processes, and it's sort of like all these employees are W-2, they all have RSUs, they all have a low cost basis, they get X amount of RSUs year over year, and so the stock's appreciated, and it's sort of similar situations between all of the executives.
And is this what are the types of clients you guys are working with now?
pretty much all corporate executives from tech companies, mainly appreciated stock, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, ServiceNow, Meta, companies like that.
So you're kind of using that same process. You define
I'm
the
using
niche.
that same process. I basically brought it over to
Yeah.
Chesapeake and then built out there. We call it CES, Corporate Executive Services Group here. So yeah, the same process I used at Merrill, I'm using here at Chesapeake, and we have all the same capabilities that they do. I found it actually easier to sell against Merrill, being at the Wirehouse once you have that knowledge base built up because of our boutique feel. We're true fiduciaries. We're an RIA. We have a large Chesapeake's history was in alternatives. We have a large alternatives platform and capabilities, venture, hedge funds, growth equity, real estate. So lots of different private capabilities that they don't have at the larger wirehouse firms, but at the same time, we're completely open architecture, so we can use strategies from Goldman Sachs, which is our favorite outside partner, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and any of these SMAs or any of these strategies we can use from all these firms, and we custody all client assets with Charles Schwab, and so that gives us the backing. We have all the the CRMs and the client aggregators, and we use Orion, and we have a pretty nice tech stack, and so I find that it's almost easier to sell against them, and we have all of the same capabilities. So at this stage, once you have that business built out, I would definitely recommend moving over to an independent shop for all of those reasons, in addition to the higher payout. Because when I first came over, I was super nervous not having that Merrill name. Like, would it work at a firm like this without having that name? But it's shown that it did. It's actually worked better. And I was nervous, kind of being a young guy, not having all that extra, help and meeting with the manager every month and going all these weekly advisor huddle ups and having, guidance from senior people. But when you're ready to make that leap, I would definitely suggest it. You take a couple steps back to go, 100 steps forward type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And what does your team look like now? How does the kind of the office operate, and
Yeah,
where do
so
you
we have sort of our operations person here. Her name is Afad. We have another advisor who I work directly with. His name's Ryan. He sort of has his client base. I have my client base, but we work in tandem with each other. We have another guy, Gerasimos, who sort of runs the firm, and he's the alternatives expert. He works with a lot of multifamily, like sort of running a multifamily office, a lot of large wealthy families on their alternative portfolios. And that's sort of how our team operates. So I run a lot of the stuff with the corporate executives and become an expert on a lot of these strategies pertaining to their equity.
Mm-hmm. So are you using that same process still currently to get new clients, or how are you doing the business development?
Yeah, so I'm using the same process, and we're actually able to use more things here as compared with Merrill. Like, there's just there's less red tape being an independent shop, and so we use some LinkedIn, calling, emailing. I've pretty much built my entire business through LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, InMails, just targeting the right people and having conversations, meeting people in person, referrals, but mainly I'd say 90-something% is LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, InMails.
That's higher than I thought. I was looking at a study, and it was saying how referrals are they're used by 96% of advisors, or maybe probably even higher than that. But it sounds like using the tech makes you much more efficient in what you're doing, because it gets you it's easier to go on LinkedIn than it is to speak with a bunch of centers of influence. Not to say that that's not a good idea, but you can be more efficient. You can be really targeted as well in honing in on that niche.
Yeah, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is awesome because you can put in the companies that you want to target, the positions, the location. And so if you only want to hit C-level executives at NVIDIA that are in New York or that are in Seattle or San Francisco, you can do that. no problem. And it'll show you all the people and you're able to sort of hit them directly. And I think it works better than a cold email because they can put a face to the name. They could see your resume, your experience, your education. And so, if you offer them something of value, they're more likely to at least listen. And the goal is obviously to then take that from the listening stage and convert them through a process of multiple calls.
And I suppose also when on LinkedIn, like if you connect with them, right, you can start the conversation, you can develop some rapport, and then also they'll see all the other things that you're doing. They can see your credentials. They can see like there's a person behind this.
They have mutual connections. Like, oh, this guy John Smith at my company is a mutual connection. Maybe he's also spoken with these guys or is a current client, and you can see mutual connections, education, experience, the time you've been at those companies, a bio. I feel it works a lot better than just a cold email or a cold call because you can see all the information right there in front of you, and then you can make your decision right away.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other kind of creative ways that you've like marketed yourself or your business? Maybe that's using LinkedIn, but maybe it's other different ways.
Seminars we've done in the past, calling, emailing. Obviously, referrals always work great. We use some different sites like lead generation services, such as like Wirehouses, Smart Asset, Paladin. We've used different sites to help us, sift through LinkedIn and email and calling. So there's lots of tech out there, and a lot of stuff now, in 2024 is leveraging AI and artificial intelligence. So as long as you're keeping up with the tech, there's certainly ways to make things more efficient with all the tech and AI.
Yeah, what kind of things are you seeing that are useful with using AI and developing business or like servicing current clients?
Well, ChatGPT obviously is a given for just for doing research on stocks, and instead of doing hours and hours of research, you can it aggregates all of that information, and you're sort of able to plug it in, and it'll tell you the information that you need. So it'll save you time from that standpoint. So I use that a lot to do research on specific stocks and stuff like that. But there are services out there that'll use AI to, almost like a Zoom info, but to better target your prospects using AI to help you automate certain emails and LinkedIn and things like that, and helping you find that like if you go on Zoom info, it'll give you a million names. There's other services out there that you're able to focus in on your true target prospect or lead using, they say they use AI and to target that in and pull the data based on what you're looking for, stuff like that.
I have a question about competitiveness, right? The advisory business is a competitive business because there's not an insane amount of advisors out there, but there's people that that you're competing with. How do you stay competitive in the business? Is it a credentials thing, or is it just making sure that you're up to date on all the new tech that's going on? How do you stay competitive?
I would say having a great process. That's what we do. That's how we differentiate ourselves. Is our process. And it's a numbers game, so we're trying to hit the most people that we can, have the most meetings that we can, do the most prospecting. It's all about, like I said, numbers. So you have the most at bats, you're going to have, the most amount of hits. It's just getting out there, putting your name out there, hitting the right people, and having a great process to be able to take those initial cold conversations and converting that into clients.
Yeah. So you said that your niche right now, or it has been, those corporate executives. Earlier we were talking about kind of the sports angle, right? Have you considered thinking about, maybe I could jump into professional, you said you enjoyed football, right? Have you considered that as like a niche you'd want to explore?
I've like dabbled in it, but we don't have a tight process. Sort of here we have something of value that we're offering to executives that have large concentrated stock positions with a low cost basis. And they're easy to hit through LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, and search for the company and the executives. I want to go hit, players on the Miami Dolphins. I can't just go on LinkedIn and search, wide receivers on the Dolphins and hit, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Braxton Berrios. It's not it's not something that is as efficient, and the athletes usually, for the most part, they're more difficult to deal with and have less money than some of these executives.
That's,
The
it's
NFL, you know what it stands for, right? Not for long, not for long.
yeah, the lifespan isn't that long. They're 35 is really old.
Exactly. 35 is like ancient.
Yeah, I was
Brady is one of a kind, so that's for
golf too.
sure.
I was watching that Netflix golf show, right? What's it called? Final Swing, something like that. And they said, "Oh, Rory McIlroy, who has like gray hair, he's the oldest guy on the course, and he's 35." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't play golf anymore." Amazing. These guys are they're but he's got a good amount. He's just one in so many, it's
Yeah,
and the information out there, like you said, it's not efficient, right? LinkedIn is so much more efficient because you can get all the information you need in one spot.
absolutely.
That's very
Absolutely.
tough.
Yes. For now, I'm sticking with the executives,
Yeah.
but
I think it's a really good idea because at the end of the day, they're all going to have similar characteristics. They'll have similar challenges. And when you can really focus on the niche, you know what conversations to have with them, what'll resonate. And that way you can bring them through your process a lot more efficiently. So I think it's a good way to approach it. But it's always fun to be like, maybe one day a former NFL player will be a corporate executive. Maybe he'll own the Dolphins.
yeah,
Stephen Ross. Oh, that's what you got to do. NFL owners. Although there's
yeah,
not that many of those. That'd be cool
exactly.
though.
And very hard to get a meeting with.
Yeah, with Stephen Ross. Your guy's office is at Rockefeller Center. Oh, what's he own? He owns Columbus Circle and then the Hudson Yards, I think, right?
Yeah, and
Something
all
like
the
that.
stuff in like West Palm now, like the Rosemary Square project and all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's big.
he's a big guy. So we talked about. Oh yeah, what are your general methods of staying in contact with clients? I read a statistic the other day. Oh no, maybe it wasn't a statistic, but it said the number one reason, at least in marketing, why people switch who they're doing business with is perceived indifference. It's not that they're really angry. They're really happy they stay, but like perceived indifference is like, oh, I guess they just don't care about me. They don't stay in contact with them enough. So how do you
Yeah,
make sure that
it's just
like
staying on top of, like, you know how hard it is to get a client. You want
yeah.
to be able to keep the client, and so just staying on top of them. Having those quarterly meetings, if not monthly, checking in, making sure everything's okay, updating everything, uh, constantly just getting in contact and seeing if there's anything new in their lives, updating their financial plans, updating the whole entire client relationship, essentially.
That makes sense. You gotta stay in front of people. It's such an easy win. Um,
Especially when there's some market volatility. It's good to reach out, talk through it with some clients. They start to get a little, on edge. A couple weeks ago, there was, a really bad day in the market, and a lot of calls were coming in and stuff like that. And just managing expectations is very important.
I on that note, so I like to just learn about like day in the life, right? What are specifically from a tools perspective? What do you use each day to like kind of make your business run? What are the tools that you use?
So I use So we custody all client assets with Charles Schwab. So I'm in Schwab checking like the alerts and my activity, monitoring all the accounts. We use Orion for like our client aggregator. We also have Attapar, which is good for a lot of the alternative investments to aggregate that. But Orion's good to aggregate the Schwab accounts, and you can check performance and stuff like that. We use Redtail, which is like owned by Orion now, for our CRM. It's just like a Salesforce. There's a company out there called Powder that helps with, it's like an AI. I think I even forgot to mention them earlier. It's an AI client aggregator where you're able to upload statements, and it helps you parse the statements for information data. So you don't have to go to Morningstar and plug in every fund one by one. You sort of upload the statements, and it'll tell you the fees and the cost basis of each of the different positions and stuff like that. So super powerful. I'll use Powder. A Prospect LinkedIn Sales Navigator, obviously. some of these other tools. Finny is one of them that helps. It's sort of like a new and improved Zoom info using AI that I alluded to earlier. Zoom for all our meetings. Outlook, obviously. That's pretty much what I'm using. We check the Bloomberg stuff like that for all to monitor the markets and stuff like that.
Are you a news person? I know some people that try to stay far away from the news just because they're like,
I watch CNBC and the news, Fox Business, Fox News, stuff like that, just to keep up to date on current events, geopolitical events, and different market events, stuff like that. But I'm more looking at it from a macro level as opposed to trying to watch Jim Cramer pick, his 5 best stocks of the day.
Yeah. What about, so this is kind of tangential to news, but do you go to conferences to learn about industry best practices? Any conferences that you go to?
I should go to more. I've been to a few of them. I should go to more of them. Right now, just so focused on prospecting and bringing in new clients. Mm-hmm. But at Merrill when I was there in the training program, we did a lot of events and stuff like that. Always, every Friday at lunch, we'd listen to some successful advisor and hear best practices and best tips. They were pretty good at doing group events like that.
Oh, and those are internal things, internal Merrill people?
Yeah, internal events. Yeah, I did. I went to all that when I was there. So.
Interesting. But I'm thinking T3 is a technology event, right? Have you heard of that one?
Yeah. I haven't gone to it, though.
Okay. I got it. Let's see. We talked about staying in touch with clients. We talked about, when somebody comes to you, right? Maybe it is somebody that works in NVIDIA. How do you guys know if they are a good fit? Is there questions that you ask them? How do you know this person is perfect?
If they're a good fit, if there's it's got to go two ways. So if they're have to be a fit for us, but we just as much have to be a fit for them. And how we determine that is if they have a certain level of stock that they have with a low cost basis, a large embedded gain, they're looking to diversify. There's strategies that we like to leverage with these executives to help them diversify away tax efficiently and compound their dollar for dollar position and just doing things from a tax perspective. The business has become super commoditized. A lot of the firms offer the same strategies and things like that. And so how do you differentiate yourself? And we like to do it from a tax mitigation perspective. So everything we do is focused on tax mitigation. So there's a need for diversifying away tax efficiently, and we can help them. And then we can take that and parlay that into broader planning and wealth management, stuff like that. And there's more value that we're adding compared to their normal advisor, or even if they're doing it themselves and they can't manage it or don't have access to these strategies. That's usually a client that we're looking for. Okay. And so the clients that we're targeting are usually VP and higher at companies that have had tremendous appreciation within their respective stock. And we reach out to them and see if there's a need to sort of offload that. Maybe it's become outsized with respect to the rest of their portfolio, or the stock's been appreciating for a long time. They want to take some off the table, or they're getting new RSU grants invest year over year, and they want to diversify it away tax efficiently. That's what our approach is.
Mm-hmm. And so these are all going to be tech company people, right?
Yeah, primarily tech. That's where all the growth has been.
Yeah.
You heard of the big 7 names, most of the growth, yeah.
What's it called? Is it the Fantastic 7 or the Magic 7? Yeah. There's a nice name about them, I think. Yeah.
And so the NVIDIAs, the Amazons, the Apples, the Microsofts, Netflix, Google. So.
Oh, here's a question for you about geography. Do you guys? So when you're speaking with somebody, right? Sometimes people like to deal with people locally, but.
Yeah,
Seattle is not in Boca Raton.
No, and we actually just onboarded an executive in Seattle. 90-something% of the people that we have are not local. Some 90% plus don't really care that we're not local. If we're ever out there, it's good to meet them in person. I think in person is great. But now with all the things changing post-COVID, with all the tech now, I don't think it's necessary. At Merrill, the team that I worked with, really rarely met with people in person because Zoom did the trick. But here, I think it's better to meet with people in person. I don't think it's necessary. It definitely can only help. It doesn't hurt. Yeah, we have people all over the country.
Are there people that you haven't met in person?
Yeah. There's people we haven't met in person. But, for instance, I was in Denver a couple weeks ago. I was in Houston before that, LA before that. So I try and get around and meet people, especially if there's multiple clients in a specific area.
Yeah.
When I went to Texas, I went to Houston, Austin, and Dallas because we had clients in all three of them. And just try and get out there as much as I can. But I think it's definitely helpful. It's not necessary. Some clients would really so they won't even speak to us if we're not local, but I'd say it's the small majority, less than 5% of the people we hit are oh, I won't talk to you because you're not in my area, in Austin. But it does happen once in a while, but sometimes we just combat that as well. We're just can we show you the value that we'll add? And then it's enough value for them and they see the benefit and they don't really care as much as they had thought that they did. So I'd say sometimes, but not a majority of the time.
How much of your business is referral-based versus outbound? It sounds like you guys are doing a lot more outbound.
Mine is mainly outbound because I'm younger and trying to build the business up. But once you get to a certain point, it's definitely more referral-based, and you can take your foot off the gas, and it's more coming in.
Yeah, but now it's all systems go. You gotta prospect all the time, and you gotta share those success stories.
Exactly.
And not in person.
Prospecting. Well, that's the beauty of this post-COVID world. We didn't have we didn't even have the option to do in person for years, and so now that we do, it's good to get out there. But we also have the ability to close people, via Zoom, and a lot of these tech executives are used to it. Maybe if you have 90-something-year-old retirees in South Florida, it's going to be more difficult to do Zoom and close somebody. They're looking for more of that, in-person relationship because that's what they're used to. But a lot of these tech, these younger tech guys, they prefer, if you're in New York City and they're in New York City, they don't even want to get on a subway. They're like, why do that when we could do Zoom?
Yeah.
So they're used to it. It's sort of engraved, the calendar invites, the Zooms, the Teams and WebEx. They think differently than somebody who's a retiree, and so that they're more open to having that virtual relationship. And I know a lot of CPAs now also are doing a lot of virtual relationships and stuff like that. Insurance, the whole world's changed post-COVID, and it's a lot of companies are getting rid of their office space, saving money, investing into the team and the infrastructure and other things that aren't. The office. I still think it's better, but not necessary, like I mentioned before.
Do a couple of follow-up questions on that, and then I have a final question. You're the main office for you guys in New York. You're based in Boca Raton. Is there an office down there, or do you have a home office?
There's an office down there. Yeah, it's not as large as our New York City office, which is in Rockefeller Center in the International Building across from St. Patrick's Cathedral. But it's a smaller office down there. We have a lot of clients down there, so some of the other advisors from our New York office like to come in and meet clients down there.
Yeah. This is a question more about developing rapport with clients. Is there a dress code that you find that clients are more approachable with? As in a lot of times it's white collars, but sometimes the tech guys have hoodies and stuff like that. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, you're saying I should take off the suit and tie when you're meeting a guy who's a tech, works for a tech startup because they're used to wearing gym shorts and t-shirts.
Have you experienced that at all?
I like to dress more professional. I mean, at UBS and at Merrill, I was wearing suit and ties every day. Now I'm pretty much just in slacks and a button down, no tie. Sometimes I'll put on a jacket.
Yeah.
But this is sort of my look, even if I'm meeting with somebody who's a tech startup guy or or not. I mean,
Yeah.
I sort of keep like a more professional look, but I understand maybe it could be cool if you're meeting a tech startup guy.
Yeah.
You have the John Fetterman look. You throw on a hoodie and a pair of gym shorts.
Yeah. Okay, two final questions for you. The first one is like, so say you do have say a tech guy is listening to this, right? And he's like, this might be a good idea. What questions should they ask themselves, or she? What questions should they ask themselves to figure out, like, is this, what should I know about the markets, and is my situation appropriate for you?
Yeah, I would say first, if they're getting stock grants and vest every single year and they don't have like a strategic plan or strategy around that, uh, they should be open to hearing about strategies that they may not know about before hitting the sell button and maybe selling some appreciated stock. There are strategies out there that may be of value from a tax mitigation standpoint that may really, really benefit them. And so, if they're not aware of those things and they don't know how to execute or have access to it, have a conversation, listen to all the other strategies that are out there that are benefiting other people in their position, and see how it can benefit themselves. It may make sense because they fit the perfect situation in terms of like their basis and their appreciation and the market value of those securities, and they may not fit because maybe they work for a company and the stocks gone down and they don't have a gain, and they do all their own wealth management, or they do their own buying index funds and stuff like that, and they have all their planning from a tax perspective. They know which retirement accounts and 529 accounts and all that, but sometimes they don't. So if there's a need and they want more information, the greatest thing about this business is we put all the information out there in front of them, so they can. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost them anything to go through the process. And then once they go through the process and they get all the information that's out there, then they can make that decision. Like, do I want to move forward or do I want to keep things the same? So that's the cool thing. It's not like a lawyer where just to get on the phone with them, they're charging you, between $500 and $1,000 an hour. We put all the information out there, and then from a client's perspective, it's let me get all that information, and then I can either move forward or not. So I think, it certainly makes sense to listen and just
Cool.
go through the motions if there's a need for it initially.
Yeah. How can people find you?
They can reach out via, phone, email, LinkedIn. Our website is chessman.com, CHESM as in Mary, AN as in Nancy.com. They can reach out to us there. I'm also happy to speak with other advisors like Pete, who I know had introduced us. Great guy. Just share best practices and listen to his story. I shared with him my story. Learned a lot from him. He learned from me. And I'm always interested in meeting other advisors as well and just brushing ideas off each other.
Okay.
Maybe there's other strategies out there that we don't know about. I was talking to a guy outside my building the other day, and he wasn't really aware of direct indexing and stuff like that, and I told him about it, and he was like, oh, I just did my first direct indexing account. And so it's good to share bounce ideas back and forth, and I'm very open about what we're doing, and it's cool
Yeah.
to have other conversations.
Wonderful. And they can find you on LinkedIn as well, of course.
Yeah, LinkedIn, of course, of course. So Alex Goldstein or Chesapeake Asset Management, they can reach out to us.
Wonderful. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I would have?
No, I would just say Chesapeake is and originally was an alternatives asset manager, and so our capabilities in terms of like venture capital and alternative investments, hedge funds, real estate, we manage a lot of pensions and endowments, alternative portfolios for a lot of family offices as well, large family offices, and so our capabilities in that realm. Some people are interested in just, they're not corporate executives. They're not interested in doing like traditional wealth management or financial planning or tax planning. But they're interested in, I want to invest in SpaceX, or I want to invest in, one of these large private companies, or from seed stage all the way through pre-IPO. They can reach out.
I see.
They can have a relationship on an as needed basis sort of thing. Like if something pops up and they like it, they want to invest, They just sign like an NDA and a client IMA, and they can, wire money sort of on an as-needed basis as opposed to being like a full-service wealth management client.
Yeah. So they could be like, oh, I want to invest in a mine. Where can I find a mine? Maybe
Yeah,
you guys have a mine. Who knows?
exactly. No, that's absolutely correct. We just dealt with that with somebody with
Really?
yeah, with oil and gas, and yeah, we actually have this fund. So
Yeah. So like the non-liquid markets, you guys also help them with.
that's what Chesapeake's
Uh-huh.
heritage is. That's what Gerasimos does day in and day out. That's how the firm, which started in 1998, did. That's what we did exclusively, and so yeah, certainly. So that's part of the like original Chesapeake legacy business is straight alternatives, and then there's some other guys from Morgan Stanley that came here, me from Merrill Lynch, and we do a lot of the public market, more traditional wealth management stuff.
Okay, very interesting. Well, Alex Goldstein, wonderful to have you on the podcast. We can do this again in a few months, and I'm really looking forward. And all the best with your baby on the way in December.
Yeah,
Very cool.
thank you. You too.
All right, I will stop it there.
Awesome.
Okay.